So yeah, thanks very much for accepting the invitation once
Pleasure,
again.
pleasure.
So maybe I can just kickstart and I can ask you some simple questions regarding your
Yeah,
artistic upbringing.
yes.
Any memories, anything that you kind of remember as something that introduced you to art and maybe just steer you towards pursuing creative life in general?
Mm-hmm. Um, I've painted and drawn since I was very little. I mean, I've always enjoyed doing that. I don't really consider myself an artist. I consider myself a painter, which I suppose is a slightly different thing. But
Mm.
um, artists, I don't know, seems a bit of a sort of overbearing term, I suppose. But yeah, so I was brought up in a family. My father painted, and he had a lot of interest in art, and we had a lot of art books, and I was always interested in art, and read all the books, and painted and drew from a very young age. I mean, I wasn't really good at anything else, so that was why, really.
Mm. I mean, art in general is such a vast. If you have artistic skills, I think it's like a huge multifaceted skill you can apply to so many facets, so
Yeah,
many different facets of life. So I think when people say that they only did art and that was the thing that they could
yeah,
do only, it sounds a little bit like downgrading the art skills, which
right,
is,
yeah,
especially in
I see.
today's age, so
Yeah,
applicable. So
yeah. I mean, I really enjoyed drawing. I mean, drawing was, to me, drawing is the key to all art, really, in a way.
I see.
Without drawing, you can't really do much.
Can I ask, like, why do you think drawing is so important in, or maybe just for you?
Well, maybe it's just for me. I can only go by what I think, but I think it really helps you look at things. I mean, you look at things in a different way, I think, when you draw, and makes you look at the world in that way. And it's a very good way of describing what you need to do. So without, I mean, if you can draw something, you can tell someone something very quickly or describe something. I think so. It's handy in that way.
I see. I can see um, your drawings are very broad in terms of how you approach them, and some of them relate a little bit to your painting practice. Some of
Mhm.
them are very
Mm.
fluid. Some of them resemble the old masters' works, which is
Yeah,
I found really fascinating.
yeah.
Uh,
I mean, they're
really.
all from very different times of my life. So, I mean,
Mm,
some of those old drawings, charcoal drawings, are from when I was at university college and stuff. So, they go back a long time. So, I think
mm,
it does say actually they're old college drawings. So, when you do
nice.
live drawings, you'd have to do all that sort of stuff.
What you currently focusing on in terms of your, painting? Is it more paintings or drawing? I can tell from.
More painting, more
I see.
painting. Mm.
Perfect. So as you said, you have a little bit different approach to viewing yourself as more like a um, why is it painter per se, not artist, if I may ask? Because there's have like a follow-up question to the style, if you have a style, and I think it kind of links
Mm.
that
Yeah.
you might not have the same kind of opinion on having a style, like being an
Mhm.
artist or just being like a painter, not just, but being a painter.
No, I don't. I do think I have a style. I just think, I mean, an artist sort of implies a certain amount of kind of intentions or pretensions, if you want to call it that way. But you kind of, I don't really have a particularly rigid philosophy about what I do, although I have a very clear visual view of what I want to do, but not necessarily any kind of, I'm not really trying to make a point to anybody, really. So that's why I
I see.
probably need to be less of an artist in that sense.
Being a tabula rasa for yourself and just painting, following the ideas, I guess. And
Yes, I just do whatever, I paint whatever I want. And I think when I was at university, when I was at St Martin's, I was probably trying, you have to do a lot of theory, and you get bogged down in that. And I sort of, as you get older, you kind of reject it a little bit more, I suppose, and just
mm,
do what you want to do.
I see. Are there any other forms besides painting close to your heart? I mean, we just spoke about drawing, which is
Mhm.
very just closely linked, but anything that's like a direction, video editing, like video shooting,
Yeah.
video
Well, what I
directing.
do most of my time, apart from painting, is make videos. So I make corporate films mostly, so I direct them. And so photography, filmmaking is probably
The main
second.
ones.
Yeah, yeah.
Nice, nice. Would you say seconds, or is it something that's like a leveling? It's leveling.
No, yeah, leveling in terms. I mean, I probably spend more time making film than I do painting, but that's only because it's more expensive, more valuable to me. But yes, I enjoy both, but probably painting would be ultimately the thing that I would do if I
Would you
had to.
say?
If I was on a desert island and that was the only I had a choice of anything, it would be painting. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess with making videos, it's more about the audience and conveying something to
Yeah,
people. This is why it was kind of invented. Whereas painting, going back to the first painting in the cave, it was
yeah,
very
yeah,
like very very primal
yeah,
self-expression. So we kind of need that inherent need for that.
yeah. And I like the
So
aspect of a painting that is its uniqueness. Well, if every painting, even if you repeat it, is unique. It's kind of. And I like that aspect of it.
that kind of reminded me of when I went to your Twitter. I found this series of passports paintings.
Passport pictures, yes, yeah,
Yeah, so the kind of the repetitive aspect of it, and still revealing a lot of different,
yeah,
personality traits, just how the paint is layered, and
yeah,
while having the same like a very defined way of
yeah.
approaching a topic. So that kind of rings a bell. Do you think there are very clear like skill transfers from your painting and drawing to you as a creative director?
Yes, absolutely,
Mm.
yeah. I mean, yeah. I mean, from probably composition and color and things like that, sort of definitely.
Another question I'm quite curious about. I wanted to ask: how do you decide on whether the painting is finished, or drawing, or even
Yes,
video?
yeah, yeah. Well, it's a very tricky question, isn't it? Really, I mean, I don't set out to produce highly finished pictures, so I'm not, I mean, a super realist or something. You can go on forever until you get it perfect, but I don't know. I suppose it's just a matter of when I think it looks the nicest. At the moment when I think that bit of paint's just about right. Really, I suppose.
It's like a
Um,
challenge to stop the process.
yes, it can be because you can overwork a picture. Obviously, that's but I work in a very mechanical way, so I don't. I try the least I think about the painting while I'm painting it, the better.
There's one painting I found of this girl, which is quite rendered, quite strongly rendered in terms of like the details.
It's more work. You mean? Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, there's more work put into it, and I'm not sure whether that's includes time that you put into it. But I mean,
Not
definitely.
always. I mean, it's quite a small picture that. I think I know the one you mean, but girl with long hair.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yes. Yeah, it's a small picture. It's also I was experimenting with different grounds as well. So that's on a linen, and there's a lot of sinkage in the paint. So it kind of creates a less sort of defined edge to the paint. So it's more of a if it looks different technically, it's not because it's been painted differently. It's because it's slightly different materials.
Mm, I see. What is the most difficult? This is more kind of philosophical slash
Mhm.
life inspired question. What's the most difficult in pursuing in general artistic career or practice, or just way of life?
The most difficult thing is money. The
Oh,
most
money.
difficult thing is money.
Yeah, I guess this distinguishing yourself to the degree that you can
Yeah,
make money from art.
yeah. I mean, if you
Nice.
look back on artistic practice in the world up until the mid 20th century,
Mm,
it's pretty much only been rich people who have painted. So it's
that's
been
true.
massively informed by the amount of money you had,
Mm,
because other people just simply would not have been able to afford to do it.
Even when it came to artists as pure craftsmen, because I think back in the day they were more I would say considered as people who would just provide like a craft to
Yes.
depict some.
I mean, if you go back very far in painting, when painting was a craft, you know, when you go back to say Michelangelo or Leonardo, I mean, they were craftsmen because they were replacing. They didn't have photography, did they? So they had to have painters as craftsmen. But I'm talking about the modern art, pretty much, and from the sort of mid 19th century up until mid 20th century. Before that, I think artists were craftsmen, and you could go and work in an artist studio and become like an apprenticeship, really. I mean, it didn't used to exist in universities or anything. It wasn't considered a academic subject.
Yeah, I never thought about this. The lack of education in art, it was more self-led. When we go back to the artists, like as you said, the old masters, they were kind of founded themselves.
Well, even when I was younger, it was only they'd only recently made an art degree an actual honours degree. Before that, it was an art qualification when you got at college. It wasn't a proper degree like an English degree or.
That reminded me of Manchester School of Art. That it started as a university for fabric creation, not say fine art, fabric patterns and stuff like consumerism, directed at consumerism rather than the art for art per se. And the bourgeois from the 19th century, I guess, is where it all started. Kind of started inklings of it when people also started detaching from the status quo art.
Well, to paint something that is avant-garde, which by its very nature is not going to be liked by a vast majority of the population, is something that you need money to do, or you need to be very poor to do, one or the other.
Yeah, that's true. That's very true. As we kind of, I think, touched upon it, any particular artistic movements you cherish, like a period of time in art?
Well, I like all sorts of art, really, but particular movements. I like the minimalists. I like Donald Judd and around that period. I really like interwar British art, which is probably people like Stanley Spencer, Henry Lamb, Paul Nash, Neveson. These are sort of people that existed between probably just before the First World War and then up until the Second World War. So I really like that period. Yes, I mean, there's so many different movements, really. I'm not a big fan of the Impressionist period, particularly. I prefer the Pre-Raphaelites, if that's.
I love Pre-Raphaelites.
Yeah, I mean, I like a bit of pop art. I like individual artists more than I like movements, I suppose. But minimalism has informed a lot of what I do, and then I suppose minimalism in someone like Morandi or someone like that, you know, which I quite really like, you know, sort of.
So are there any particular kind of points that, as you said, it's more about the artists themselves? Any particular trait you kind of drawn to that you'd say?
The trait I like most is a kind of detached, unsentimentality.
Okay, so there is probably a lot from the artist's personality that kind of bleeds into the
I mean, one of my favorite paintings in the world is Whistler's mother, his grandmother sitting in a chair, which is actually a profile picture, actually, but it's probably one of my favorite pictures in the world, and that's because of the composition and its rather stark nature.
Do you think composition, I mean, for you as a painter, what role does composition play? Because it's looking at your art, its composition is very kind of, you have defined approach to a composition that changes, that varies a lot, but a lot of your painting is very defined, like the composition itself. What role does it play in your
Yes, it's very important to me. Yeah, probably more important than anything, really.
Than color as well?
Colors not the most important thing to me. I mean, it's important, obviously, but it's not. I'm not a colorist in that sense. I'm not about color.
So would you say in pursuing the finished the finished painting, you look more the values of the composition, whether this pleases you or not, like if there's anything
Yeah.
that needs to be changed, and
I
then
think if you've got the composition right, then the
mm,
painting can work almost, you know.
I see. Yeah, because
I
some
mean,
of
a
your
lot of my paintings don't have much of it in them, so they're quite stark, you know. But I like going back to the idea of like unemotional. I mean, I painted boxes for a while, you know, these sort of like little boxes and things. And so even the people, they're the same to me. It doesn't matter whether it's a person or a box. They're just objects in space. They're not. I don't. That's why they're unsentimental. And that's why I like the profiles really, because it sort of dehumanizes them in a way, you know.
and also the passport, the series.
Well, they're dehumanized by the nature of the photograph that you're
Yeah,
taking.
exactly. Yeah, I remember once it reminded me of a story when I took the passport photo in this one of those booths, and it
Yeah.
took a photo of me and it gave me the photo, and I felt so like dehumanized. Exactly. And I looked at the
Yeah.
photo, I was like, "Whoa, this looks like just a stamp, just created
I
person,
know.
just
Yeah.
on the
That's,
go."
yeah. Yeah.
It's so not human.
Mhm.
So yeah, this is a really interesting approach.
Well, a lot of the pictures I paint of, you know, the sort of the fat guys and stuff, they originally came from, a lot of the first ones came from pictures of people, like before and after pictures and slimming, you know. So there's a picture of a guy with a big belly, and then the next one's he's got a six pack kind of thing.
Oh yeah, this one's.
So I quite like them because they've been taken without any conscious decision to make yourself look good or bad. They're just practical images, you know, that I quite like.
Yeah. And they kind of the before step, it's also quite often made to look a little bit depressing,
Yes,
and
made to look worse. Whereas the next
yeah,
one, they're kind of grinning or something, you know. Yeah,
yeah, it's a huge difference in everything, not just the
yeah,
shape of the body.
yeah,
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, I wanted to ask you about where um, this way of looking at the human figure originated,
yeah.
the profile
Well,
theme.
you pretty much just told you that, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
And
Um,
also, I quite like the fact that they're topless. I know that sounds weird, but not. There's very few paintings of people that have just got their tops off. I know that sounds odd. There's
hmm,
lots of nude pictures. There's millions of nude pictures, and there's lots of clothed pictures. But there's very few people that have got no tops on, and
hmm.
it sort of gives it a rather unusual look. It's almost like you think, why has that bloke got no top on? It's kind of odd,
Yeah,
but
and not just it looks like it's directed, like the photo is
mm,
really directed. It's like, yeah, just take off your top and leave
yeah,
everything else. Like there's a behind the scene reason to it.
yeah.
uh
Well,
very,
that's what I
very
do now. If I paint a model or something, they come in, I just say, take your top off and stand to your side. Look straight
yeah.
ahead. Don't smile
Oh no,
any
this guy.
no direction other than that.
How often do you change between oil and canvas, oil on
Wood or
acrylics?
canvas.
Do you paint with
I don't use
acrylics?
acrylics anymore. I used to, but I don't use acrylics anymore. That painting is quite big. It's about 1.2 meters tall, so it's quite big. Um, so it's on canvas. If it's big, it's on canvas. If it's small, it's on wood, basically.
Oh, I see. So some of them are on wood. I mean, I saw that. So is like smaller painting you prefer to paint on wood?
Quite often, yes, because it gives you a very smooth surface, which is quite nice for me. Um, Whereas obviously a great big piece of wood that's 1.2 meters tall would be way too heavy to post to
Hmm,
someone or something.
I see. I see. Um,
I actually think, I mean, I don't know whether this is true or not, but I actually think that because everyone used to paint on wood back in the Renaissance and stuff like that for the
yeah,
smaller
that's
pictures,
true.
and then they used canvas for the large pictures. Um, but
Mhm.
um, but I think it's got to the point where people just ended up using canvas. But why use canvas for a small picture? I don't understand the reason really, because
Yeah.
people spend ages trying to get rid of the grain in small canvases. So, sorry, I'm in an interview.
Sorry for
My
interrupting
howling
you.
dog.
We're talking about the canvas using. Oh, I was saying that I also don't like the texture of canvas. I mean, you can use it, you can consciously use it as to your
Yeah.
advantage, and I think a lot of artists do a really good job in that. But me personally, I would prefer it to be smooth.
Well, if I
And
do use canvas, I mean, I spend ages sort of like, like priming it and sanding it and priming it to get it as flat as possible. So then you might as well just use wood, really, I suppose, at that point.
yeah, I think the only advantage you said is the weight, the
The
ratio.
weight, yeah, yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, if you've got a big canvas, a big image, it needs to be, and also the grain isn't so important, obviously, because you have the scale that you're doing things.
And what is your favorite part of this artwork, of this painting? Is there any?
The face.
The face.
Mhm.
I see it's a little bit more rendered. Was it because at some point you realize you like in this composition
I think it
particularly?
looks more I think it looks more rendered because it's big, and then when you make something big, it obviously ends up being more detail when you look at it small. Whereas if it was a smaller picture, you'd see more more of the brushstrokes, etc. But so it's not really any more rendered than anything else. It's just that it was a big picture, and when you shrink it down, it looks more accurate, I suppose.
I can also see that in this painting, the saturation, I would say, the contrast is a little bit less strong than a lot of other paintings. I mean, I see that the ones you uploaded quite recently, there is a little bit similar approach to the contrast, but this one is particularly stands
Yes,
out.
I think again it's the scale and trying to get a good picture of it. Really, I think is probably the reason for that.
How?
Go on.
Sorry. So how often do you paint on bigger versus smaller paintings? What determines that canvas?
I mean, when I paint for myself, I don't usually paint very big because, but they're commissioned that sold to someone. So, and then those pictures I just posted, they're both commissioned. So they wanted them that size, so I painted them big for them because they wanted them there.
Oh,
So they're
okay.
life size basically in them.
Yeah. Do you tell people when they commission the profile painting?
Mhm.
Do you tell people the story behind it of where it
Sometimes I
originated?
do, yeah. Sometimes, yeah, I do. Sometimes
Is
they don't ask, and sometimes they come around and they want a picture that isn't a profile picture. I say that you've come to the wrong person,
profile? Do you like to get paint something different basically, or you like sticking to this particular theme?
I stick to things for as long as they interest me, so I might end up changing. But
Okay, I see.
at the moment, I'm quite enjoying doing the profiles, and it's people seem to like them, so I'll keep doing them. The way I paint them, they're masked. Every facet is masked, so I don't paint normally. I paint with masking tape, so each little facet is masked off.
Oh, I didn't know that. Oh, nice. But there's still like the edges not always. Do you
No,
blend
but that's
them?
because the paint drips underneath it, or
Okay, I see.
which I allow it to do, and then I put tape back on the wet paint, so it sort of smudges it and moves it around, and that's what I
Great.
said about working rather mechanically. It's just sort of I just do it, and if it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. So
When it doesn't work, what do you think the
the
um
reason,
yeah, the reason for a painting doesn't
no
work?
idea. If I knew that, I'd be a millionaire.
That's a good answer. I have two more questions, and we have 3 minutes, and I
Okay.
won't be taking more of your time. One question is, what's the most rewarding in being an artist?
What's the most rewarding thing about it?
Yeah, about it, yeah.
Someone buying your painting.
Do you think? Not the kind of when you paint for yourself and just.
Yeah, so I think people buying your work or a gallery exhibiting. I had an exhibition, a gallery and that was obviously that's a big thing.
And why is that?
Because people don't buy pictures unless they really want them, and a lot of people will say they like stuff, but that doesn't necessarily mean they really do. But if they pay good money for it, then they do like it.
Oh, that's a really good insight, actually. As like a real proof of someone really liking it, not saying just like, "Oh, it's a nice painting." Yeah, that's really well said. And last question, you can approach it however you want, of course. What do you think is art?
Well, that's obviously a massive question. But
And you have 1 minute.
I mean, there is a sort of defined answer, and that is art is anything that an artist says is art. I mean, that is
Not
that's
artists as
basically
well.
it.
Not artists as well.
I think you have to draw the line at non-artists, because otherwise you could just. I think what defines an artist then is a difficult question as well. But
Yeah.
I don't really care, to be honest.
Yeah. As you said, you paint whatever you want, so
yeah,
that's art for you.
I mean, you know, whether it's art or not, does it matter really? I mean, I just like things or I don't like them, you know. So
That's
I know
amazing.
people get bogged down and stuff, you know. I mean, like, you know, there was a big argument about that with because I quite like Carl Andre's bricks, you know, the famous bricks at the Tate.